Hello, everyone. I'm Carrie Delgott, Wescott's Chief Operating Officer and Chief Compliance Officer. And I'm here with Mark McCarron, our Chief Investment Officer. Great to see you, Mark.
Good to see you too, Carrie.
Mark, today's topic is ESG, or environmental, social, and governance investments. And you'll remember we provided a foundational overview, which included definitions in an earlier webinar, but today I'd like to build on that foundation and dig deeper into Wescott's ESG plus impact offer. Now, this topic is timely given the growing popularity of ESG, or sustainable investing. You'll see here on this chart that as of June 30th, assets in US sustainable funds total more than $300 billion, which is a 14% increase over the previous quarter and nearly double the record that was set a year ago. So as the assets are increasing in this space, of course, asset managers are responding by expanding their fund lineup. And we now have well over 400 open-ended and exchange-traded funds that are available in the United States. So with that context as backdrop, why don't you kick us off today with some highlights of our Wescott ESG plus impact offer? And it also might be good to refresh us on how we define ESG plus impact.
Yeah, thanks, Carrie. I think it is a timely topic. The growth in the industry is significant. You can see that from the number of funds being offered. I also would add that it's timely because we had a great opportunity to work with an intern this summer. Sophie helped us go through and evaluate the markets in general, the ESG growth in the space, evaluate some of the managers that are out there. And as part of our investment research group here at Wescott, Sophie was able to really help us identify the managers out there that truly have an impact, because there's a lot of funds coming out to the market, but we want to make sure that we measure and see that we are making that impact that we're intending to. So with that as a background, Wescott's environmental, social, and governance, or ESG plus impact target portfolios, are really designed to be a total solution. They incorporate some managers that have a very specific expertise in different areas and different themes around environmental, social, or governance factors. And we also use a core component to make sure that we have a broad exposure to the market, but that core exposure is tilted towards certain themes. And those themes include sustainability, environmental stewardship, and also social equality. Those, I would say, are common factors, common themes that our project this summer with Sophie identified across the board. The right-hand side shows a portfolio that's balanced between 60% equity and 40% bonds. It includes managers that target either affordable housing, clean energy, social equality, as I talked about those themes, but do that across different areas of the market, large companies, small companies, and those outside the US. I would finally say the offering that we have at Wescott is, can be used standalone, identifying areas of very specific themes, or as a combination, total portfolio, and finally can be customized to meet very specific client objectives. So again, the purpose of today's presentation is just to give you a little more insight, one level down, into how we think about ESG investing. And then the other question you asked was, well, how do you define it, or how do you measure it, I would even say. And the design of the portfolio is to have a lower impact through the investments we make, and the companies that we have should have better governance and better social equality relative to the overall benchmark. And we measure that in a couple of different ways. The top left-hand side is actually data from Morningstar, and Morningstar provides a rating system similar to their funds, where they have a 5-star, 4-star rating. Well, in the ESG world, they give 4 globes or 5 globe rating. Anything more than a 3 suggests that it's above average in its objective. And I'm pleased to say that Wescott's portfolios rank with a 4 globe rating. What does that mean? It basically means that the objectives that we have along sustainability, environmental stewardship, and social equality are being achieved, at least better than that of a broad market. And why do we do this? Because ESG factors pose a risk, and risk to the company itself, and also could potentially influence performance of those companies or stock prices. So to have a better or more sustainable portfolio suggests that you're avoiding some of those risks that could be disruptive to long-term performance. And that's really what our managers do when they try to look for companies in these areas, is to avoid companies that might have too much risk in one place or another. One of the risks is environmental risk. And on the top right-hand side, we have an indication that the portfolio that we built, that 60-40 portfolio we talked about, has a low carbon status, meaning it has a very limited exposure to fossil fuels and emissions. And that climate change objective is really being achieved to some degree because we're able to invest in companies that have that low impact. So the portfolio sustainability score, which is shown in the green for our portfolio over time, is always lower than the overall market. And that is a good indication to us that we're achieving the objectives of this portfolio. By the way, lower score is better because lower score means lower risk. And I would finally say that both lines are coming down over time, which suggests to me that companies in the market are beginning to realize that controlling these ESG risks is better for them as well. And so overall, you're seeing the risks of some of these big items come down, not only in the broad market, but especially in our portfolios, because that's what we're targeting.
Companies are definitely starting to provide a lot more impact through their actions, and we'll talk a little bit about that. But you started to touch on the various themes of an ESG investment. And here on this slide, we've highlighted the 17 Sustainable Development Goals adopted by the United Nations in 2015 as a universal call to action. And that was really a three-part call to action: end poverty, protect the planet, and ensure that all people enjoy peace and prosperity. And you'll see some examples here include gender equality, clean water and sanitation, and climate change. Can you talk more about how our investment managers are orienting around these sustainable development goals and making an impact through their action in support of ESG related topics?
Yeah, I think it's a great point. And this is really where the value of the internship that Sophie did this summer came through, is because we were able to identify with her help, the companies in the ESG plus impact strategy that Wescott's built that are really targeting very specific themes. And those themes are expressed, as you just talked about, through the environment or the Sustainable Development Goals that the UN put out. So let's start with Danaher, a global science and technology innovation company. Their focus is to ensure the safety of global food and water supplies around the world. At least a portion of what they do is focused on that. And the two Sustainable Development Goals, or SDGs, that they highlight and we've identified is Sustainable Cities and Communities, number 11, and number 13, that climate action. And we're gaining access to Danaher through Brown Advisory Sustainable Growth, which is a manager that our research team at Wescott has identified as having a passion and commitment to sustainable investing, and this is one of their primary holdings. The second example I would say is Vestas, energy industry's global partner on sustainable energy solutions. Well, in other words, they're a Danish company that designs, manufactures, installs, and then services those big wind turbines, these big windmills you see around the world. And Boston Common, an international specialist that Wescott selected to implement this, has affordable and clean energy and climate action as two of their primary objectives. And Vestas sort of fills that objective for them, providing that technology that will be, we think, very much in demand going forward. And then finally, Xylem, a little closer to home, is a Rye, New York-based company Their focus, among other things, is they have a portfolio of projects, and they're all water related. And what they try to do there is improve efficiency of the water use by eliminating leaks, and also providing access to water across all communities. So clean water and sanitation, as you highlighted, and good health and well-being are two additional sustainable development goals that can be achieved to some degree through investments in Xylem. And Parnassus MidCap is a component of the solution that we built, and I think is a good example of what managers can do to make an impact. The other thing that they can do to make an impact is through their action. So what do we mean by that? Once they own these companies, they begin to engage with the management. And companies can engage with management through proxy voting. And those are ways to influence management to at least think about and further objectives along social and human rights, climate change initiatives, racial equality, equal pay, among many others. So the impact aspect of what we're talking about is not just buying into and investing in those companies that are making a difference, but beginning to even change the way that those companies are being managed, again, through shareholder engagement and activism, and voting those proxies accordingly. So I think there's a lot here. We learned a lot from the project that Sophie did this summer, but these strategies that we put together are designed really to make that impact, and that impact can be seen, I think, through these examples.
Thank you, Mark. There is a lot here. Great update on a topic of growing interest. And as you know, our ESG plus impact solution is an important element of our status as a certified B Corporation. If any of our listeners would like to learn more about Wescott's ESG plus impact solution, feel free to reach out to Mark or your advisor. Thank you.